Welcome to the Critic Seat.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving deep into the Netflix adaptation of El Eternauta. It's that really iconic Argentine sci-fi comic, and now it's streaming globally. You sent over a whole stack of reviews, articles, fascinating stuff. So our mission today is to kind of unpack what's making this series tick.
Right, and maybe where it's, hitting a few bumps, according to some folks.
Exactly.
Because the original, Osterheld and Solano Lopez, it's legendary in Latin American literature. It's way more than just a sci-fi story.
Oh, absolutely. It's got that deep cultural significance.
Totally. And this Netflix version with Ricardo Darín stepping into the lead.
Oh, it's got some big shoes to fill.
Huge shoes.
So we're looking at how it holds up, bringing it to this massive global audience, but also, what this new take adds to the whole thing.
Okay, so let's maybe set the scene first for anyone who isn't familiar. The core idea of El Eternaut. It's pretty chilling.
It really is. You've got this silent, deadly snowfall hitting Buenos Aires. But it's not just snow, it controls minds.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It descends, people die or get taken over, and our main guy, Juan Selvo, suddenly finds himself thrown together with these other survivors.
Just trying to figure out what's going on, how to survive.
Exactly, that initial mystery, that almost like quiet invasion. It's incredibly effective. It really hooks you from the start.
It does, and the reactions, the critical buzz around this new series, it's been pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, there's a definite spectrum, generally positive, I'd say. You had Collider calling it gripping and thought-provoking.
Right, I saw that one.
And Ricardo Darín's performance comes up again and again. Variety called him compelling.
Seems like he's the anchor. And didn't it hit #1 on Netflix in Argentina right away?
It did, yeah. Which tells you something about the anticipation there, the local connection.
For sure. So beyond Darín, what else are the critics liking? You mentioned the atmosphere.
That eerie, empty Buenos Aires, the weird snow. People seem to agree they nailed the look and the mood. That sense of dread.
Yeah, you can almost feel the cold watching it.
And a lot of praise for how it tries to blend that sci-fi horror with social commentary, much like the original did.
That's key, isn't it? That depth beyond just aliens or monsters.
Absolutely. The original was so often read as, an allegory for what was happening politically in Argentina back then.
Right. Resistance against an unseen, oppressive force.
Exactly. So the big question is, how does this modern version tackle those themes? It might not map directly onto history in the same way, but those ideas, survival, collective action, facing down something overwhelming,
they still resonate maybe with different anxieties today, like pandemics or climate change or something.
Could be, but it hasn't been all praise. The New York Times, for instance, they like the visuals, called them striking, but also said the show can feel a little generic.
Huh, generic. That's interesting. Like maybe the glossiness smoothed out some of the original's edge.
Perhaps. Or maybe just hitting familiar sci-fi tropes. And IGN mentioned some pacing issues, especially early on, said it takes a bit to get going.
Okay, so maybe a slow burn for some viewers.
Seems like it. And if you look online, places like Letterboxd, you definitely see some fans of the original comic who are, disappointed with some of the changes made.
The classic adaptation challenge. You can't please everyone.
It's a tightrope walk, definitely. Yeah. And some of the changes are pretty significant, like Juan Selvo himself.
Right. In the comic, he's just a regular guy, a family man playing cards when it all starts.
An everyman. But in the show, he's a renowned scientist.
That's a huge shift. It completely changes his starting point, doesn't it?
It really does. Instead of being totally bewildered like everyone else, he potentially has some insight, some expertise. How does that affect, how we relate to him?
Yeah, you lose that ordinary person in extraordinary circumstances angle a bit, which was part of the original's power, I think. Maybe making him a scientist lets them dive into the how and why of the snow faster. More exposition early on.
That's a good point. It could shift the focus from just raw survival to trying to understand and fight back using knowledge.
Which leads to another big change. The whole setting is modernized.
Right, we're not in the 1950s anymore. Cell phones, modern tech. It's contemporary Buenos Aires.
And how well does that work? Does it make the threat feel more real, or does it maybe take away some of that vulnerability?
That's the debate, I think. Some feel it makes it more immediate. Others might miss that feeling from the comic of people having to rely purely on their wits and very basic tools.
Yeah, there was a kind of starkness to the original's world.
And the Netflix show doesn't just modernize, it also adds stuff. New mysteries, expanded plot lines that go beyond what was in the first comic arc.
So it's not just adapting, it's building out the world.
Definitely seems that way.
Yep.
Which, ties back into those core themes. Survival, working together, resistance. They're still there.
But maybe explored through a slightly different, broader lens now.
Exactly. And how do those themes land today? We talked about the original's political allegory. How does this version resonate now?
It feels maybe less specific to one country's history and more universal. Tapping into those broader anxieties we mentioned. Facing unknown threats, the need for community, it feels very relevant now.
I think so too. And then later on, the show introduces elements like time travel, alternate realities. Time magazine mentioned this.
Whoa, okay, so it gets even more complex.
Yeah, it starts asking bigger questions about, like, fate and causality, which is a step beyond the initial survival story.
Does that enhance it, do you think? Or does it risk muddying the waters?
Good question. It certainly adds a layer. It makes it potentially a much bigger, more cosmic story.
And visually, we touched on this, but the production seems top-notch. Everyone mentions the look of the deserted city.
Yeah, the production value is high. Capturing that eerie atmosphere, the snowfall, the emptiness, that seems to be a real strength.
And the creature design, the opposition.
We get glimpses. It contributes to that overall feeling of strangeness, of facing something truly alien.
Okay, so the story definitely doesn't end with season 1. There's a season 2 coming, right?
Yep, deadline confirmed, it's been greenlit. Which
Okay.
makes sense because season 1 apparently leaves a lot hanging.
Cliffhangers. Unresolved threads.
Seems so. Time mentioned that too. Lots of questions left open. So without spoiling anything, where could it go?
Well, if they're already expanding beyond the initial comic story.
Exactly. Season 2 could really dive into those new mysteries they set up. Explore the wider Eternaut mythology, which gets pretty wild in the later comics.
So potentially moving even further from a straight adaptation.
Potentially, yeah. It'll be fascinating to see how they continue that balancing act.
Okay, so wrapping this part up, you've given us a really great picture of how Netflix's The Eternaut is being received. It's clearly sparking a lot of talk.
Definitely. It's navigating that tricky space between being faithful to this beloved source material and, making something new for today.
And what's really striking is how this story, dreamed up decades ago in Argentina, still feels so relevant.
It taps into timeless stuff, doesn't it? Human resilience, facing the unknown.
Which brings up a really interesting point, maybe for you listening too. When you adapt something this iconic, how do you balance faithfulness with the need to reinvent, especially for a global audience now?
It's the million-dollar question for adaptations, isn't it? There's no single right answer.
Maybe the real power of El Eternaut is just that its ability to be reread, reinterpreted, finding new meaning for each generation.
That could very well be it. It's enduring relevance.
We definitely encourage you, if you haven't, to check out the series. And if you know the comic, compare them. See what you think about this latest leg of the Eternaut's journey.